Good morning. The last major battle of World War II, the Battle of Okinawa, drew to a close July 22, 1945. And on August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay, pictured here, released the Little Boy bomb on Hiroshima. This was the first time an atomic bomb was ever used against an enemy in war. Then on August 9, 1945, the Boxcar released the Fat Man on Nagasaki. Whether the United States should have employed the destructive power of the atomic bombs is still a highly controversial issue. I am reasonably familiar with this topic, as I have taken a couple classes at Penn State and in high school on World War II and European history. In high school, I also had to argue the counter to this argument that the United States should not have dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over recent years, there have been an increasing number of historians and others who have questioned whether or not the United States should have dropped the atomic bombs. As this is one of the most critical events in human history, it is essential for people to have an opinion and know about this topic. Today I will discuss the problem facing the Americans in the Pacific Theater, describe the solution they chose and the one I advocate for, and why the United States made the correct choice to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war. After having forced Germany to accept unconditional surrender terms on May 7, 1945, the United States was confronted with a complicated question in the Pacific Theater: how to end the war with the least amount of bloodshed. The United States had a couple of options, but the two main ones were an invasion of the Japanese island or trying to force the Japanese government to sue for peace after using our atomic weapons. Casualties on both sides of the war in the Pacific were very high, and the Battle of Okinawa, the last major battle, was the costliest in the Pacific Theater. This could be seen as a preview for an invasion of the mainland because of the stiff Japanese resistance and lack of empathy for the civilian population, as well as their heavy reliance on kamikaze attacks. According to an article from History.com, Japan lost as many as 100,000 soldiers, while the Allies suffered 65,000 casualties. Civilians would bear the highest death toll of the Battle of Okinawa, with some 100,000 dead. It looked as though the bloodshed was also going to continue. According to the World War II Foundation, on June 9, 1945, Japanese Premier Suzuki announced Japan would fight to the very end rather than accept unconditional surrender. Operation Downfall was the name given to the plan for the invasion of mainland Japan. The physicist William Shockley, pictured here, who later won a Nobel Prize in 1956 in physics, was asked by the War Department in July 1945 to estimate the casualties in this operation. They thought all able-bodied civilians would be armed to assist with the defense of the homeland. This study estimated 1.7 million American casualties, including 400,000 to 800,000 fatalities, and 5 to 10 million dead Japanese. Without the option of a land invasion of mainland Japan, barring heavy casualties, the United States turned to the power of our new weaponry to end the war. The United States decided to bomb Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki on August 9, 1945. The Allied commanders planned on the atomic bombs breaking the fighting spirit of the Japanese so that Operation Downfall would not have to be employed. According to AtomicArchive.com, the estimated total casualties from the bombings were 135,000 for Hiroshima and 64,000 for Nagasaki. Hiroshima was mostly destroyed along with Nagasaki. It is still a tragic event, but the close of the war could have been much more catastrophic. Now that we have seen the direct impact of the bombs, I shall talk about the pros of using these weapons. Pictured here is some provisional plans for the Operation Downfall, the invasion of Japan. Ultimately, the atomic bomb saved more lives than it took. As mentioned before, Operation Downfall would have cost an estimated 1.7 to 4 million casualties for the Americans, as well as leaving 5 to 10 million Japanese dead. If one considers that the atomic bombs only cost 200,000 victims, when compared with Operation Downfall, the atomic bombs are justified. There are those who believe that the atomic bombs should not have been used in light of recent information, in which the Japanese attributed their surrender more to the Russians entering the war than to the atomic bombs. I would say the United States took the correct course of action given their information at the time. We had no way of knowing the Russians entering the war would push the Japanese over the edge. We are holding these men to modern standards as well. What would have happened if we did not use the bombs and Truman had to explain to thousands of Americans why their sons did not come home from the war? It is not fair to judge these men who made the decision by our modern standards. Another benefit of using the atomic bombs, rather than relying on an invasion of Japan, is that Japan was not utterly destroyed. Operation Downfall could have led to complete destruction of Japanese infrastructure and therefore the economy as well. It is not unreasonable to believe the Japanese would have engaged in similar tactics as the Germans did before the Germans surrendered as well. The Germans fought for every sheet and did not give up. The Japanese would have fought tooth and nail up until Tokyo. The Battle of Okinawa could be seen as a precursor to Operation Downfall, again because of the extreme losses suffered by both sides and increasing reliance on kamikaze attacks by the Japanese. The Japanese had 110,000 soldiers and they suffered 100,000 losses before surrendering 82 days after the beginning of the battle. The majority of the losses the Japanese took were killed in action and not wounded, and only 7,200 Japanese were taken prisoner. They would not have backed down without the use of the atomic weapons. When confronted with the problem of ending the war, the Americans did what they thought best given their information. In my opinion, the United States took the correct course of action, and this led to the least amount of bloodshed and saved Japan from utter and total destruction. If this issue is ever brought up, I hope you consider some of the points presented here and you begin to understand this complex issue. Though ultimately, no matter what one believes, whether the United States should have or should not have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there is no changing the course of history. Thank you.